Trino's Choice, Chapter 6, Part A, Montoya. After the poem about the devil, Montoya read two poems that were like nothing Trino had ever read in school. Montoya read a weird rhyme about sex and the desert sun. Another poem about a woman in Brazil with no eyes. Two poems about prison life made Trino think that a prison was one place he never wanted to live. The last poem was a funny one about the creation of underwear and the creation of poetry. Once everyone had clapped, the book lady said, "Thank you all for coming. Amis said we'll be staying with us until 5 o'clock to answer more questions and sign books. I have refreshments in the side room. Please enjoy yourselves." Trino jumped up as soon as he saw Jimmy, Albert, and Hector stand up. Since they had been here before, he figured they knew where the food was. And Trino was hungry, although not quite as hungry as before. Jimmy caught Trino's eyes and jerked his head towards the wall out of the room. Since Lasana and Janie were headed up to talk to Montoya, Trino just went on his own. "Weird stuff, huh? If the guys on the team knew where I was now, they'd get me good with the wet towels after practice," Jimmy said as they walked up the ramp behind other hungry people. "So why did you come?" Trino asked Jimmy. "Lasana likes this stuff, and our sister Abby won't let her come alone. Hector and Albert think that hanging out in a bookstore makes them look smart." Jimmy laughed at his own joke. If Trino had a sister, would he go to dumb places for her sake? He didn't know. His little brothers were pests, and every time he took them someplace, one or the other would ask him to buy something he couldn't pay for. He usually managed to finger a candy and get into his jeans before anyone saw him. But Beto or Gus usually wanted a toy, and that wasn't something that could be hidden in a pocket. The four boys went inside a side room, a walled-in patio, striped serapes, a poster of Jaro with large flowers, and several small clay figures decorated the walls. Two tables were set up, one with trays of Mexican cookies and little sandwiches like Trino's mother often brought home from the motel. Disappointing since he was probably going to have soggy sandwiches for supper tonight. The other table had a glass bowl with orange punch and a large basket filled with taco chips. Nearby, two smaller green bowls were filled with a red chunky salsa. "How can you get anything on these plates?" Albert grumbled as the boys followed other people to the tables and picked up small round paper plates, no bigger than 6 inches across. After Trino saw the guys each get 2 plates, he did too. Each of them filled up one plate with sandwiches and cookies and the other plate with chips and salsa. Only problem was that there were no tables, and standing in a corner with a plate in each hand, it was hard to eat. So Trino put the chip plate on top of the sandwich plate and just pulled something out until both plates were empty. The mouthy Janie had been right about the book lady's food. The sandwiches were firm and tasted like some meat was between the bread. The cookies were very sugary. Trino thought he should get a couple into his pocket for Gus and Beto before he left. While Trino ate, he listened to the guys talk about a show they saw last night on television. And then Jimmy told a funny story about Mr. Cervantes, who taught math to most of the 7th graders. When Hector asked Trino his opinion of Coach Trevino's red cap with an armadillo tail coming out the front, Trino realized for the first time that Hector was in the same history class 3rd period. He had never been around a group of boys that had stuff to talk about. His friend Zipper never said much, and Rogelio usually repeated what somebody else said first. Trino didn't say much, but inside his head, lots of words rumbled like distant thunder. It was time for a second walk around the food table by the time Lasana and Janie showed up. Lasana held one of Montoya's white books in her hands. Her eyes looked like glass, and she was smiling like she had found money on the sidewalk. Wait till you see what Emilce wrote in my book, Lasana spoke in a whispery rush before she opened the book and read. To a young poet, Lasana, whose words will take her as far as her dreams can soar. She looked right into Trino's eyes as if she expected him to be excited too, and then he signed his name. Isn't that cool? That's cool, Trino said, thinking he sounded just like Rogelio. I told him to come and meet my other friends, Lasana said, still smiling at Trino. You should talk to him too. He's very nice. What do you say to a poet? Trino just looked down at his empty plate. It was a good time to leave. He had eaten enough and he wasn't too far from the front door. He wanted to tell Lasana that he hoped he'd see her around in school, but didn't want to sound stupid in front of everybody. Maybe he'd give Hector a nod during class next week and find out where they all hung out during lunch. I have to go, Trino said to Lasana. I've got things to do. You do? Her eyes got darker as she sighed. That's too bad. I'm really glad you came today. She talked like she meant every word. Trino had never met a girl like that. Usually they called him names or made like he wasn't there. They talked like Janie or they laughed like donkeys. How did Lasana come to be so different? Trino stepped back from her, bumping into a tall plastic trash can. He tossed his plate inside, wishing he could get a glass of punch now. But knowing he had to leave while he could, as he moved to go, he was surprised when Jimmy told him, See you around, Albert said. Be looking for you in school now, man. And Hector told him, See you in history class, Trino. Janie just giggled, but Lasana said, I hope I'll see you Monday at school, Trino. Lasana's pretty smile gave Trino a good feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. Only he wasn't expecting the busy group of people filling up the narrow aisle that led past the counter and towards the door. About 6 people were lined up to pay for books, and the book lady was taking her time talking to every one of them. What if she saw him leave without buying anything? She couldn't be so crazy to expect everybody to buy a book today, but Trino really didn't want to have to talk to her. Trino decided to look for a back door. There had to be some way to take trash outside. He slipped past the side room. Lasana and her friends didn't see him pass by. He headed back into the room where all the picture books were. He stopped and studied the room a little more carefully, but it was mainly shelves on the walls. And we'll leave it there for today.